A detailed summary and reflection on Shalya Parva, the Book of Shalya, the final day of the Great War, the fall of the last commanders, the brutal end of old grudges, the breaking of rules in the name of vows, and the lonely defeat of a king who fought till his last. Shalya Parva is the 9th major book of the Mahabharata. It has 59 sections and 3,220 verses. This book covers the 18th and final day of the war. Shalya leads the Kaurava army as the last commander, but the day brings only death and defeat. The Kauravas fight with everything they have left, but the Pandavas push forward without stopping. The book shows the killing of Shalya by Yudhishthira, the death of Shakuni at Sahadeva's hands, the mass slaughter of the remaining Kaurava forces, and the final make duel between Bhima and Duryodhana. It ends with Duryodhana lying broken on the ground, alone with his pain and his regrets. Shalya Parva is full of desperate fights, broken promises, and deep sorrow. It shows how a war that started with pride and anger ends in silence and loss. The story starts at dawn on day 18. The Kaurava camp is quiet in a way that feels different from all the other mornings of this war. It is not the quiet of rest. It is the quiet of a place where hope has already left and everyone still standing knows it. Duryodhana looks at the few warriors who remain and feels the weight of all the dead sitting on his shoulders. He asks Shalya to take command. Shalya agrees, but his heart is heavy in a way he does not put into words. He knows what the day will bring. The Pandavas wake up with new energy. They have lost more than they can count, but they can see the end from where they stand and it gives them strength. Krishna drives Arjuna's chariot as he has done every day of this war. The air feels different on the 18th morning, like the war itself is tired and ready to be finished. But before it is finished there is more blood to spill and more grief to be made. Shalya Parva teaches about the full cost of war. It shows that even the side that wins carries marks that do not fade. The last day is not about glory. It is about finishing what was started long ago in a dice hall full of laughter that turned to weeping. After Karna's death on day 17, the Kaurava camp feels hollowed out. Duryodhana sits in the firelight with the few leaders who are still alive, Shalya, Ashwathama, Kripa and Kritvarma. His eyes are swollen from grief. He has lost his brothers one by one across 17 days. He has lost Bhishma, Drona, and Karna. He has watched his army go from 11 Akshohinis to what sits in front of him now. But he does not give up. That is the thing about Duryodhana. Whatever else you can say about him, he does not give up. He looks at Shalya and asks him to lead the army on the final day. Shalya is the king of Mathura, uncle to Nakula and Sahadeva through their mother's side, but he fights for the Kauravas because Duryodhana found him on his way to join the Pandavas before the war and received him with such honor and hospitality that Shalya felt bound to grant him a boon, and the boon Duryodhana asked for was Shalya's military service. It was a trap made of generosity, and Shalya walked into it with open eyes and could not walk back out. He has been carrying that ever since. He agrees to take command without many words. A small ceremony happens before dawn. Water is poured over his hands. The soldiers who remain cheer, but it is a quiet cheer, the cheer of people who are trying to find something to hold on to in the dark. Shalya sits in his chariot and looks out at the field he will ride onto in a few hours and thinks of his nephews on the other side. Then he pushes the thought away and prepares himself. He is a man of honor caught in the wrong place, and the book makes sure you feel that without ever saying it plainly. He will fight with his whole heart for a cause he does not fully believe in because that is what his word demands of him. He rides out in the morning knowing he will not come back. Dawn comes on the 18th day, and the two armies form their lines for the last time on a field that has seen 17 days of the worst fighting the world has ever known. The ground beneath their feet is not soil anymore. It is layered with the remains of everything this war has consumed. The air carries the smell of blood and smoke and something harder to name, the smell of an ending. Shalya arranges what remains of the Kaurava army into the strongest formation he can manage with what he has. He rides at the front, upright and steady. The Pandavas form their lines with Yudhishthira at the center. The conches sound one final time across the field. Then the arrows begin. The fighting on this last day is described in the book as the most desperate of all 18. The Kauravas fight like men who have nothing left to protect and nothing left to lose. Every soldier who is still standing has made it through 17 days of this, and they know what it means that this is the last morning. They fight with the particular ferocity of people who know the end is coming and want to take as much with them as they can. The Pandavas push forward with the strength of people who can finally see the shore. Warriors fall on both sides through the morning hours. Shalya leads with real skill and genuine courage. He wounds many Pandav soldiers before midday. But the tide is turning and everyone on the field can feel it turning. These are men with homes and families. The ones dying on the 18th day survived 17 days and then did not make it through the 18th. The book holds all of that without flinching. At midday, Yudhishthira and Shalya find each other on the field. It is a meeting that carries weight beyond just two warriors choosing to fight. Yudhishthira is the eldest Pandav, the one who started this whole chain of events by sitting down at the dice board. Shalya is the last Kaurava commander, a good man who spent 17 days fighting his own nephews because of a promise he could not take back. They face each other and both of them know what this duel means. Shalya fights with everything he has. His arrows are precise and powerful. He wounds Yudhishthira and presses him hard. The Pandav king does not fall. He steadies himself and continues the fight. At last, Yudhishthira takes up a divine Shakti, invokes it properly, and hurls it with full force. The spear flies straight and strikes Shalya in the chest. The king of Madra falls from his chariot and does not rise again. The Kaurava army sees their last commander go down, and the remaining fight drains out of them. Yudhishthira stands over the field and does not feel joy. He knew Shalya. He knew he was his uncle by a different line. He knew Shalya was not a wicked man. He knew the promise that trapped him. The kill is necessary and it is also heavy, the way most necessary things in this war have been heavy. Shalya fought well for a cause he did not choose with his whole heart, and he died with his make in his hand on the last day. That counts for something, and this Parva does not let it go unnoticed. After Shalya falls, Sahadeva goes looking for Shakuni. He has been waiting for this for a long time. Shakuni is the man who sat behind the dice board and made the game go the way it went. He is the architect of the whole disaster, the uncle who whispered in Duryodhana's ear and turned jealousy into a plan and a plan into a war. He did not lift a sword to start this. He used dice and words and his own particular kind of cleverness. But the result is 17 days of the worst slaughter anyone alive has ever seen, and Sahadeva has been carrying the knowledge of Shakuni's role in all of it every single day. He finds him and challenges him directly. Shakuni fights. He uses illusions and his make and whatever he has left. But Sahadeva pushes through every trick. He cuts Shakuni down with his sword and takes his head. Shakuni's son Uluka tries to avenge his father and is killed shortly after. The deaths of Shakuni and Uluka are not triumphant moments in the story. They are moments of completion. The man who pulled the first thread has had the last thread pulled from him. Sahadeva feels something settle in him after it is done, not happiness exactly, but the particular kind of stillness that comes when a wrong that has been sitting in your chest for a very long time is finally answered. The dice game is over. The man who rigged it is gone. With Shalya dead and Shakuni gone, the Kaurava army loses the last thing that was holding it together. It falls apart. The Pandavas push through the broken lines with full force through the afternoon hours, and the killing is fast and terrible. Thousands of Kaurava soldiers die in those afternoon hours. Elephants go down. Chariots are crushed under their own weight. The ground that was already covered with 17 days of dead is covered again. Only 3 major Kaurava warriors survive the day: Ashwathama, Kripa, and Kritvarma. Everyone else is dead or running. The Pandavas move through the field without stopping because that is what finishing a war looks like, and none of them have any illusions left about what war is. They do not feel joy in the killing. They have not felt joy in any of the killing. They feel the necessity of it, and underneath that they feel the enormous emptiness that comes from doing something necessary for 18 days that you never wanted to do in the first place. As the sun begins to move toward the horizon, the field goes quiet in the way that fields go quiet when there is almost no one left on them. The Pandavas stand among the dead and feel the weight of what winning has cost. When the army is gone, Duryodhana stands alone on the field. He turns in a circle and sees nothing but death in every direction. His brothers are gone. Every single one of them, all 99. His friends are gone. His commanders are gone. The men who cheered for him and believed in him and followed him into this war are dead on the ground around him. He feels grief and anger and something underneath both of them that is harder to name: the particular hollowness of a man who has arrived at the end of everything he built and finds nothing standing. But he does not surrender. He does not lie down. He takes his make and he walks away from the field, and he finds the lake of Dwapayana and he goes into it. He uses a skill he learned, the ability to solidify water around himself, and he breathes through a reed in the stillness under the surface. He hides. The man who has been at the center of the greatest war the world of this story has ever seen is hiding in a lake breathing through a reed. This moment is described honestly and without mockery. Duryodhana is not a coward. He has proved that across 18 days. He is a broken man who needs a moment in the dark water to think. He thinks about his choices. He thinks about the brothers he will never see again. He thinks about what he believed and whether he still believes it now that it has cost him everything. The Pandavas search for him. They know the war is not finished until Duryodhana is found. The Pandavas move across the field and through the surrounding forest and find no sign of Duryodhana. Then hunters who saw him enter the lake come forward and tell them where he is. The Pandavas go to the lake and stand at the edge of the water. Yudhishthira calls out across the surface. He says, "Come out. Finish this." Krishna and Bhima add their voices with less patience and more edge. They use the one thing they know will work on Duryodhana. They call him a coward. They say a king who hides in a lake while his men die on the field above him is not a king. They say history will remember this. Duryodhana hears it all from under the water. He hears the word coward and something wakes up in him that the cold water and the exhaustion had quieted. His pride comes back, not the ugly pride that started the war, but the older pride underneath it, the pride of a Kshatriya who was trained from childhood to face what is in front of him. He rises from the lake with his make in his hand and water running off him, and he faces the Pandavas. He says he will fight them. He says he will fight them one at a time, any of them, all of them, because that is what he is and that is what he has always been. The Pandavas look at him standing there alone, soaking wet, the last Kaurava, and feel something complex moving through them. Respect is part of it. Even now, even here, Duryodhana is something to reckon with. Duryodhana picks the make because the make is where he lives. He is the finest make fighter of his generation, and he knows it, and so does everyone watching. Bhima accepts the challenge. The two men have hated each other since childhood, a hatred that was never just about a kingdom, it was about something older and more personal, the particular hatred of two strong men who grew up in the same house and saw each other clearly and could not find any way to exist in the same world. Now they will settle it. The duel happens by the lake with the armies of both sides watching and Balram watching from one side, having arrived from his pilgrimage along the Saraswati in time to see the end. Balram taught both men the make. He is their common teacher, and he watches his two greatest students try to destroy each other. The fight is long and fierce and genuinely equal. For a stretch of time. They are both extraordinary, and both exhausted, and both carrying 18 days of war in their bodies. They circle each other. They strike and block. Every blow sends a shockwave through the ground beneath them. Duryodhana wounds Bhima more than once. Bhima keeps coming. Then Krishna catches Arjuna's eye and slaps his own thigh. The gesture is clear. Arjuna understands and signals Bhima. Bhima remembers. He made a vow in the dice hall on the day Duryodhana bared his thigh and invited Draupadi to sit on it, one of the most degrading moments in the whole epic. Bhima vowed that day that he would break that thigh with his make before the war was done. He strikes Duryodhana below the waist, on the thigh. It shatters. Duryodhana goes down with a cry that carries everything in it, pain and rage, and the shock of a man who has fallen when he believed he might still be standing at the end. Balram is furious. He has watched a fair duel turn unfair in a single blow, and he knows the rules of make combat as well as anyone alive. He raises his weapon to punish Bhima for the foul strike. Krishna stops him. He speaks quietly and carefully. He reminds Balram of Draupadi. He reminds him of Abhimanyu in the Chakravyuha. He reminds him that dharma in this war has not always looked like the rules written in texts, that sometimes a vow made in response to a great adharma carries a weight of its own. Balram listens. He is not fully satisfied. He walks away in anger. The duel is over. Duryodhana lies on the ground with his thigh broken and the sun going down, and the field of Kurukshetra spread out around him covered with the dead of 18 days. He looks up at the sky. He curses Bhima. He curses the Pandavas. He says Krishna's tricks decided the war and not true valor. He says he lived as a king and now dies as a king, and he does not regret it. These are his last words, and they are given to him fully. He is broken and alone, and wrong about many things, and still himself at the very end. There is a particular kind of sorrow in watching someone be completely themselves at the moment of their complete defeat. Shalya Parva is the most painful of the war books, not because it is the most violent but because it is the most final. Every death before this one had the war still going on around it. This is where the going on stops. Duryodhana on the ground by the lake with his thigh broken is the image the book leaves you with, and it is not a comfortable image. He is wrong. He was wrong about nearly everything. He caused enormous suffering through pride and jealousy and an inability to accept that what belonged to the Pandavas belonged to them. And he is also a human being lying alone on the ground while the light fades, without a single one of the 100 brothers he grew up with, and you are asked to hold both of those things at the same time. The book teaches about the cost of pride that cannot bend. Duryodhana had chances to end this. He had chances before the war began. He had chances during the war when people he respected asked him to reconsider. Every time his pride was stronger than his judgment, and he chose the thing that felt like strength in the moment and turned out to be the thing that destroyed him. His loneliness at the end of the 18th day is the direct result of every choice that came before it, all the way back to the dice hall. All the way back to Draupadi's humiliation, all the way back to the day he first looked at the Pandavas and could not bear their existence. The book also teaches about the impurity of victory. Bhima breaks the rules of fair combat to fulfill a vow. Balram's anger at this is real and it is right. The Pandavas win the war, but they win it through a strike below the belt, literally, and this Parva does not dress that up. It holds the moment honestly even while acknowledging that the vow came from a real and terrible wrong. Winning on the right side of a war does not mean every action taken to win was clean. Shalya's death carries its own quiet lesson. He was a good man. He was tricked into fighting for the wrong side. He led the last day of the war with full commitment to a cause he did not fully believe in because his word demanded it. His death at Yudhishthira's hands is not a defeat of wickedness. It is the death of a decent man who made a promise he could not get out of and paid for it with his life on the last morning of the last day of the worst war the world of this story had ever seen. Shalya Parva sits at the end of the war books, coming after Karna Parva and before the Saptika Parva, which will bring the night massacre and its own terrible reckoning. With Shalya's death and Duryodhana's fall, the open war on the field of Kurukshetra is finished. What follows are the consequences of what the war has done to the people who are left, the survivors, the grieving, the ones who have to figure out how to live in the world the war made. But Shalya Parva does something the other war books build toward without quite reaching. It shows the complete shape of what defeat looks like when it is total. Not just losing the battle. Losing everything. Duryodhana entered this war with 11 Akshohinis, with Bhishma and Drona and Karna at his side, with 100 brothers, with the resources of a great kingdom behind him. He ends it lying alone by a lake in the dark with one broken leg and the bodies of everyone he loved spread across the field behind him. That is what happens when pride refuses every offer of peace and drives a family into a war that did not have to happen. The Pandavas stand on the field at the end of the 18th day, and they have won, and they know it, and they feel nothing like what winning is supposed to feel like. They feel the weight of 18 days and the weight of all the dead and the weight of knowing that what comes next is figuring out how to rule a kingdom that the war to win it has already half destroyed. The victory is right. The cost of it is almost unbearable. Shalya Parva ends with both of those things true at the same time and does not resolve the tension between them. It leaves you sitting with it. That is what the Mahabharata does best. This essay is part of the Deep Thoughts series on Mahabharat.at, exploring the Mahabharat's most difficult moral questions, its characters, their choices, and what those choices mean for us today. Read the full essay and discover more at https://mahabharat.at.